Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, home of the satirical saltire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With me, my co-host this evening. It's a wee change. We've got Eileen Spence. Hi Eileen, how are you doing?
I am okay.
It's good to have you on. It's good to have you on. This will be your maiden Tweet Street presenter role, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So without further ado, we're here for one reason and one reason only. We have an absolutely fascinating guest as far as I'm concerned. I followed this woman's story pretty much for the outset, if I realised it, because it was similar to somebody else's. We have Twitter's Femme Love, who's Ceri Black. Hi Ceri, how are you this evening?
Hi, thanks for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on. As I say, I've followed your story keenly because it's very similar in its origins to something that happened to a lady in Scotland. And I don't want to rush ahead, so I would like you just to kind of introduce yourself to our subscribers and tell us how your story started.
Well, I'm Ceri. I actually set up FemLabs originally as a sock account because I was on Twitter under my own name and I wanted to get involved in this whole debate. I'd seen people online, I'd seen men saying they were lesbians and that I was a bigot for not wanting to sleep with them. I'd seen people blurring boundaries about child protection and saying that men belonged in women's changing rooms because they put on a dress and said magic words. And didn't even have to have an operation or anything. They were just allowed in. And I saw all this and I wanted to get involved, but I didn't feel brave enough to do it under my own name. Now, bear in mind, this is 20 months ago. So I set up this account in March and I just started tweeting and I got stuck into it and started speaking to other people who were involved in it too. And then over the summer, I got brave and I thought, well, and I was involved in setting up the LGBT Alliance Ireland before that. And I was involved in some other political stuff too, some groups. I got brave enough to come out of my own name. But having done that, I then got brave enough to start tweeting about the reason that this is so personal to me. I started tweeting about what happened to me when I was a little girl. I started tweeting about how queer theory is just a machine designed to break down boundaries around child protection and around everything else. And I started speaking from my heart to survivors and about child protection. And as a result of that, I got so many messages in my inbox from survivors. I got so many people messaging me and saying, I feel less alone now I've read that. I've never told anybody this, can I tell it to you? All this kind of wonderful messages from survivors. And I have messages as well from people who, and I get emotional every time I say this, but people who have read my threads, recognize their new boyfriend and what they read, taken action to protect their own children. So right now it's 6 o'clock at night and there are kids in the world who are getting ready to go to bed and lie safe in their beds because I got a bit brave last summer. So that's quite a thing. But I think probably because of my involvement with the LGBT Alliance Ireland, a Scottish actor, it's all right, he's not Voldemort, he's David Paisley, we can say his name. He started engaging with me, started trolling me. He, with all his massive intellect, managed to dox me and found out that I lived in central London. Hilariously. Yeah, so he published I lived there. So I ended up just blocking him and then he blocked me. And maybe I unblocked him at some point to see what he was doing. But anyway, I was blocked by him. He wasn't blocked by me. And I did a thread which essentially set out some of the issues around child protection and some boundary blurring things that people were saying. And I didn't quote him by name and I didn't quote him directly. But he was so triggered by this thread that he sent me a message on DM. Now, just for anybody who's watching, one of his modus operandi is he writes these pseudo-legal letters. So they are long and they are bullying and they are mean and they quote all different kinds of laws and they just go on and on. And when you get one, they feel scary. I mean, I know nothing about the law. So the best thing about these letters is if you show them to a solicitor or to a legal person, they laugh and laugh and laugh because they're so ridiculous. So anyway, I didn't want the hassle, so I deleted the tweet. So he then reported me to the police.
Now, I remember reading your initial thread, and obviously because of all the things that are going on in Scotland, it's the same as in Ireland and in the north of Ireland. There's the same sort of issues with the GRA. So it was kind of interesting for me when I seen your thread at the time, because as much as I didn't want to be doing it, it's forced upon you when you're thinking about your own kids and you're trying to make sure that you're best placed to protect your kids and to help other people to protect their kids also, right? So I get involved. I read your thread and I read the things, and then the Marion Miller thing happened. And it was, well, the Marion Miller thing was happening, but the Marion Miller thing was pretty much coming at a crescendo to where it's at before the police appeared at yourself, if my timelines are correctly and how I remember it. And there's been mention, I think Marion Miller's case is on hold. It's not actually finalised or what's the word, cancelled or so we need to be careful about what we say.
Sorry, Peter, what they did with Marion's case was there was a statement from her firm of solicitors kind of thing, and he said that her case was discontinued.
Discontinued, that's
right?
what I was trying to get.
And I looked at that and I thought to myself, that's a very, very strange thing for the Crown Office to be putting down. You know, there was actually an announcement from the Crown Office as well, and I thought that is really strange. And then you find out that if they're going to drop charges, it should have said deserted. The Crown deserted the charges.
And what it means is they can come back anytime.
Yes, right. So what they've done is they've just parked that, right? And this is just an opinion of mine, but I get the opinion that they're away on a fishing expedition, you know, to see if they can find some more, because I do know that, or we have been told, that some texts went back 2 years.
I've got a funny feeling that they'll be trying to hold off until the GRA is imposed. Then
yes,
they'll try to. Yes, then they will try to do it that way.
I don't think they can apply that retrospectively. That's the thing. It would need to have been the law when the alleged offence was actually committed. So I believe that's why Marion was charged under the Communications Act.
Right.
And were you in Northern Ireland, Ceri?
Northern Ireland.
Well, that's English law, so it would have been the Communications Act that you were charged under as well.
So I've not actually been charged yet. This is the ridiculous thing. I mean, it was so funny the way it went down. So this policeman called me up and I was like, who are you? Like, are you even a policeman? So he said, I'm from Legan Police Station, blah, blah, blah. This is the badge number. And he said, we need you to come in for an interview. So I said, I don't want to come in for an interview, thanks. Like, why do you want me to come in for an interview? So he said, well, you've got to come in for an interview or we're coming out to arrest you. So I said, I think I'll talk to a solicitor, thanks, and come back to you. So I talked to my solicitor. My solicitor said, don't bother going in for an interview. Like, if they've got enough evidence, they'll arrest you. So I thought, blow this for a game of soldiers. Like, so I went out to Belfast and I made a speech, and there were coppers there at the protest. And I said, like, come and get me, come and arrest me if you want. And I actually held out my hands for the cuffs. I can't believe I did it. Oh my God. But I did. I held out my hands to the coppers with the cuffs. And then a couple of days after that, Paisley deleted his Twitter account, which was interesting. And then they said, well, we'll come and arrest you at a time that's convenient for you. Like, we'll make sure we're not going to manhandle you. We'll give you notice of coming to arrest you. Like, we'll not keep you long at the station if we can possibly help it. It was hilarious. Like, can you imagine the police telling you we'll arrest you at your convenience? Hilarious. So then they decided they weren't going to arrest me after all. They were just going to send it off to the prosecution service. So they sent it to the prosecution service because they obviously didn't want to charge me, and they also didn't want to arrest me. So the prosecution service is now currently deciding whether or not I'm guilty of, now it's misuse of an electronic communications, malicious communications, transphobic hate crime, and homophobic hate crime. But I currently have non-crime hate incidents recorded against me.
It's absolutely appalling. I mean, there was somebody mentioned something. I'm no lawyer and I'm no legal, Ceri, but I mean, I don't know if this is something that perhaps you could pass on to your lawyer, that because they sent it on without charging you, then it will. I don't want to give away too many secrets for defence. Is that something that you're aware of? It was sent on
So,
without an actual reading your rights.
so they did read my rights. So this was
Right. Was this before they sent it on to the?
Yeah, so it was weeks and weeks, and my therapist wrote to the police to say, "Can you hurry this up a bit, please, and like let I know what's going on, because this is ridiculous." And they wrote back to the prosecution service, and the prosecution service wrote back and said, "We haven't got any cases by that name." So I then tweeted at the chief constable of the police. I tweeted and said, "Excuse me, like what on earth is going on here?" 12 hours later, 2 policemen knocked at my door, apologized. They said, "I'm very, very sorry to have to do this." And then they read me my rights and said, "Right, we'll now be referring this matter to the prosecution service."
Right.
But my 9-year-old son answered the door, but that was definitely an interesting conversation. When you're living under threat of arrest, you have to tell your children something.
Of
And I
course.
told him, I said, look, if David Paisley said that I'd punched him in Belfast on Monday, but in fact I was in Lurgan on Monday and didn't punch anybody, the police would still need to come and talk to me. So it's not anything to be frightened of. You'll just go up to your aunts at the end of the road. I'll be back in 24 hours. So the policeman knocked on the door, like, knock, knock. My 9-year-old answered the door and he says, "Mom, the police are here. Are they going to arrest you?" Like, it was just so cool about it. So whatever we said to them must have worked. Like, they're cool. Like,
Oh, as long as the kids are okay, well, as long as everybody's okay, because ultimately we want everybody to be okay, but the kids are the ones that will find it more difficult to understand. So yeah, you're doing the right thing, keeping them on board. That would be like something I would do the same myself. Let my kids know what to expect, so that they're no frightened and they're no scared of seeing a parent, somebody that they're close to and love and trust and everything being taken away. It must be awful for kids to actually have to be a part of that. So to explain it's a really good idea.
Ceri, can I ask, was it just the one person who made a complaint about you?
there were others.
There were others?
So, over the course of a week, the original fella, Paisley, was calling them multiple times. Apparently he was calling them like every time I tweeted and every time I said anything, he was calling the police about me. Over the course of a week, which is just...
Oh, well, he's not employed with River City anymore, so a bit of loose end.
No, what I
And
meant
there was somebody else, but I don't know who the somebody else was.
Oh, right. I thought you might have known who it was.
No, there may have been several others, but I don't know. But the only way I could have found out is if I'd gone for an interview. And there's no way I was going for an interview for them to get more evidence. Like,
no,
now, I can talk a wee bit about Marian's, but I can only talk about what is already in the public realm, right? What was reported in a newspaper or what was up on Twitter, for the whole world to see, right? And Marian was contacted by telephone by a policewoman who wanted her to come in for an interview on a Thursday of a bank holiday. It was in May, right? And if you come to the west of Scotland and the police contact you at a bank holiday and want you to come in on a Thursday, if you're wise, you'll go in the run, because you could end up having a lie-in over the holiday weekend and not go to court until the Tuesday, right? But apart from that, Marian's got small children and she's got 2 boys who are disabled. And she very politely said, "I'm sorry, that's not going to be possible because I need to organise childcare and things like that." And police officer said to her if she had a problem with childcare, she could get the social workers up for it. Now, I was shocked rigid, because that doesn't sound to me like somebody who is absolutely, totally neutral, right, and is making inquiries and wants to interview you to get your side, of an allegation kind of thing. And obviously, she's a mum, she's got disabled kids, she's got 2 younger kids, they all go to school kind of thing. And this was a real big worry for her. And the thing, she's a splendid mum, hard-working mother, right, does brilliantly with her kids. And I just thought, what an awful, awful thing to do. And the next thing that happened after that was she got a call at the end of May. Right, same thing, bank holiday weekend. And it just, to everybody round about it just sounded like intimidation. Now, I'm not allowed to say who it was that made the complaints as far as Marian was concerned, because that wasn't in the public realm. It wasn't on Twitter, it wasn't in the newspapers. it'd be very interesting, you know, when this comes up, to find out, you know, the similarities between it. And also, I think someone else told me that when it comes to like hate crime, right, even if nothing bad has happened, you know, maybe somebody said a name or something like that. I know that somebody from the Scottish Trans Alliance was telling people, make the complaints, even if nobody's arrested, because we need the numbers. Right, that was number one. And the other thing was, Police Scotland have got an LGBT plus Q whatever association of police officers, and I would need to have this confirmed, but allegedly, if it's something like what happened to you or what happened to Marion, it's the LGBT association squad that would deal with it, which I find quite strange. That's a bit.
And it's equitable policing. Are they being equitable? So I've reported things to them recently, and not so recently. I told them what happened to me, and I gave them names and dates and addresses. Do you know? I told them who it was, where it was, when it was, and what they did. And they did nothing. I told them that one of those men was currently working in schools as Santa Claus. They did nothing. I ended up, I called the schools, I told the schools about it, like I took action, and he's not working there anymore. But the police didn't, I had to. And I went to them and told them that I had rape threats, death threats. I had somebody send me a picture via DM of the front of my house and telling me that they were coming to my house to decapitate me.
That's dreadful.
Me. They did nothing. They recorded it as a non-crime hate incident.
I know Marion had terrible threats as well. I mean, it was absolutely, completely appalling. The threats that she had.
This is what I find hard to understand, and like, I guess this is the man side of it. I can't figure what you women are going through. It scares me knowing that police services are getting used as personal guards for people in power. And we've spoken,
it's you know, I've no proof of this, right? I mean, it's an allegation at the moment, right? But there's actually quite a lot of people saying it's as if the LGBT Stonewall movement, you know, umbrella, have got their own police force within the police.
They absolutely do. The police service of Northern Ireland are Stonewall champions. And a couple of days after they came around to my house, those policemen looking so shamefaced and apologising to me for reading me my rights, which I slightly enjoyed. I have to confess the fact that they apologised first. But anyway, 2 days after that, they said, we are announcing a review of our relationship with the Stonewall Diversity Champions scheme and with Stonewall. So I don't know whether I had anything to do with it.
Well, do you know,
I hope so.
You know, I've been doing a wee bit of digging on that, to be honest with you, Ceri, and Ceri, and I wouldn't be clapping my hands in celebration quite yet. I know there's a lot of people dropping Stonewall, and quite rightly so, because I think it's incompatible with equality and fairness, right? But they've got their consultants. You've got global butterflies. Right?
Yeah.
So if Stonewall doesn't go in, global butterflies will go in, right? And global butterflies will do the training for the police or for the fire brigade, right? Or for, you know, the civil service. I mean, for example, I am honest to God now feeling, right, that in Scotland, as a heterosexual married woman, I'm not going to get treated fairly. I'm really not, because Stonewall have trained all 16,000 civil servants in Scotland. 16,000 of them. You will do this, you will do that, you will say this, you will say that.
But
right?
the thing that I'm noticing, just on what you're saying there, Eileen, and just for Ceri, I'm noticing, I mean, obviously, Ceri, you're married, you've got kids. I'm married, I've got kids. There are gay men, there are lesbians, there are all sorts of people getting, it's as if they're getting attacking a different area each time, just to kind of destabilize that, then move on to the next one, so that there's, how do we cope with this, and then going back, and there's no debate, and women are getting shouted down, and there's no way of ever fixing the problems that we're currently facing. The punishment for Ceri and even for Marion, well, for Marion so far, has been the process that they've been absolutely dragged through.
Well, part of the process is the punishment. Now there's loads of backlogs of, you know, court cases and things like that, you know, Glasgow Sheriff Court anyway. An order case has been put off. Don't know when it's getting recalled. And neither does Marion, and that's not fair because, like, I think it's Article 6 or something, European Convention on Human Rights. She's got the right to a fair trial and she's got the right to be tried in a timious fashion. Right? That it's not long drawn out. And we're talking here about a woman who has never been in trouble in her life before. Hardly even has a parking ticket. And she's under bail conditions.
I find
and stress and the
and I think on the process is the punishment bit. I mean, the first couple of weeks were, what do I want to say? I could feel it in my body. And sometimes I still can feel it in my body. Do you know, like, I can feel it sometimes.
Yeah.
But actually, if you think about the process, if we were just looking about the results of what that man has done in my life, I would actually buy him a pint if I met him. Do you know, if we were just talking about the results. Like, more people have found out about child protection from reading my threads. More survivors have read my stuff and don't feel so alone. And I've found out, I always hope, so we did a project at school when I was 12, and I got 11 out of 10 for it. It's the best mark I've ever got for anything. And it was this little book on the suffragettes, and I turned it into a massive project. And always I've just hoped I've got the suffragette spirit in me, but I didn't know. And this has given me the chance to find out. So I've found out things that I like about myself that I didn't know. And even I'm eating less, but great. Okay, I'm eating less, so I'm on the Paisley diet for my wedding. No, thanks, dude. I'm sleeping less, but great. There's more time to write, more time to think, more time to talk to my friends. I'm finding things sometimes a bit uphill. So I've gone back to therapy, which is brilliant. I'm working on doing more meditation, more self-care. So I'm feeling really good emotionally. I've met people I wouldn't even have dreamed that I could have met. You know, I've got so much support from people. I didn't know that I had that much support. And if I just judged that man by the gifts he brought me, I would have buy him a pint. But the point is, he's not a good man, and he's gone after women for long enough in this debate, and he's just given me here the perfect opportunity. Do you know, I just have to get this ridiculous prosecution over me, and then I've got options going forward.
That's it. I love your positivity. I love to hear the fact that because one of the things that drew me to ask you, because I followed your story, I followed the things that you share because they're good, they are informative, they help me to learn. And so one of the reasons why I asked, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her because it's similar to Marion Miller's case, and Marion Miller's is because she's still under that umbrella of it not being complete, not being finalised, not being dismissed, or whatever the terminology. Aye, whatever the term should be to clear her or to finish it for her. So to get you on, it was really good. And there's been bonuses that have came about me actually asking you to come on. So I'm going to. I used to call the guy, because I didn't know who this guy was. I used to call him Craig Paisley because I just didn't have a Craig Paisley. His name was to me. It was the guy off River City that my sister used to. Right?
Has anybody heard of either River City or him?
Well,
like, who is he even? I'd never heard of him. Well,
to be fair, I hadn't until my sister had said, "Oh, he's an actor," and I'm like, "What? He's a what?" And then I checked it probably because I had his name wrong. I'd been calling him Craig Paisley, not David. So anyway, I found out who he was. Then I heard your story. I knew about your story, and I heard the revelation of what's happening, and I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity because it appears from somebody who has no connection to it, just looking at it from what I've seen from Marion Miller and the reporting of it, to yourself, that there's a misogynist at play, trying to target women. It's how I've seen it, and I mean, is that?
Do you know what's really unusual? Right, okay, he's an actor, right, and he's in River City or whatever. Where is he living? Was he living in Glasgow? Was he living in London? And why would he be bothered about somebody in Northern Ireland?
He actually reported me to the Met Police. So he reported me in London.
So we see how
And
vindictive.
they never told him to go and raffle himself.
Well, I mean, we see the carry on that's happened with Downing Street and the police not investigating the party that was happening, even though
it
we
was a
were
year.
there. So I mean, come on, I don't.
I forgot, they don't, in London, they don't investigate anything that's more than a year old.
Right, more than
No
a year old.
retrospective crimes. No
Ah,
retrospective crimes.
Right, well,
Right.
no.
And if any of your tweets are more than a year old, actually, you should probably get them dropped.
Well, there you go. That's an angle to take then if they're not doing retrospective punishment. I wanted to.
He was so scared. Sorry, he was so scared of this tweet and like so hurt by it, and it's so much of a terrible crime that he waited from like summer until nearly Christmas to report it.
Yeah.
He waited for the summer to Christmas.
He waited for months before he reported it. Months.
So I mean,
that's calculated.
Aye. I mean, that's
right?
how I see it.
It's like why not report it at the time, right? Why? I don't get that. Why would you wait 6 months?
It wasn't. It was a few. I think it was like 2 or 3 months from when I tweeted it.
Right, but even at that, why not? It's like somebody punches you in the eye. Do you go 3 months later and report it to the police? You've no evidence.
I mean, I find it absurd. But let's move on a wee bit, Ceri, because you'd said that if it was just for the benefits that you've had after the reporting effect for David Paisley, Craig Paisley, whatever his name is, if it was just for the benefits, you would buy the man a pint. And I think that one of the benefits, and also just to touch on your suffragette, like if you've got that suffragette bit in you, they were speaking about you in New Zealand the other day. The leaders of New Zealand were talking about you and Marion Miller.
They were?
Australia.
Australia.
I spotted you in the Australian
That's news to me.
I sent you a wee clip. I sent you the little part where they were enforcing or they were implementing the GRA, and they had referenced yourself and Marion Miller. Don't worry. I've got an image that I'm going to flash through in the recording anyway, so you'll get to see what it was. But I sent you the clip. It should be as part of something that I've tagged you in.
That's right. I spotted it in the Spectator.
That's right. You sent it on to us, and I sent it on. So I'll flash it through, but I'll send it to you again just so that you've got a reference point for it, Ceri, if you need to ever refer back to it. But they referenced you and Marion Miller. So it wasn't.
Then they were talking about the similarities between the cases.
Yes, and I think it was more to do with that you were. My take from it was that people like you were the people that they were trying to get rid of. Now I'm in the people like you, so I took offence to it, and it instantly made whatever hero worship that I already have for you and Marion for the trials and tribulation that you've gone through. It instantly grew that and made me go, no, well, I'm the same as these people. Okay, I have a penis. I just don't have the bits that they have. But I am the same mentally and in my heart and in the person that I am, like standing up for what's right, and what's right is protecting yourself and your rights, your family's rights, and everybody round about you having equal rights. So what's wrong with that? I mean,
but the point is, it could have been you.
Yeah,
it probably wasn't because you're a fella, but it could have been anybody, and it could have been anybody in the situation that I'm in or that Marion's in. And I'm really one of the milder people on Twitter in terms of this debate. I
have the abuse that I have seen poured over women on Twitter by men and by trans women. It's utterly revolting, right? And they don't get banned, and nobody does anything about it, right? Because it's just women.
Yeah,
it's a disgrace.
My good friend got banned yesterday from Twitter for simply saying to a trans person that they should celebrate the fact that they're not in a demographic that's at high risk for violence. They got banned.
But I'm finding that people that are sharing facts, whether it be biological or other, seem to be the ones that are being punished. The people that are telling the truth.
I used to be in Twitter jail regularly for saying the XX, right, was what female, right, and XY was male, right, and sex is immutable. You cannot change sex. it would mean changing trillions of cells, every single cell in your body, right? If you're a boy, it's XY, and that's the chromosomes it's got in it. If you're a girl, it's XX. How do you change every single cell?
Mhm.
You can't.
And the place I come from is that there may be some circumstances, and particularly in gay spaces, in LGBT spaces, where you may refer to somebody as she when they're a man, or he when they're a woman. And you might play, particularly in gay spaces, you might play with it. Like you might call a butch lesbian the king of the lesbians or whatever. Or you might say, oh, you're an absolute queen to a gay man. You know, like you play with those things. But the trouble is that those play, I mean, it's play, it's irony, and it's play, and it's fabulousness that has gone beyond LGBT spaces, and it's been made solid. Like it's not irony anymore. It's not fun anymore. It's being made into medicine. It's being made into law. It's being made into language. It's been taught in schools.
See, queer. See the word queer. See, when I was growing up, Ceri, my parents kind of said that was a slur.
It is a slur.
Right? And they never used the word gay when I was growing up. It was homosexual, right? And yes, it wasn't talked about. Right? It just wasn't talked about. But we were never told that, you know, I think it was maybe a lot more innocence as well, right? But we were not allowed to be unpleasant to somebody just because they were different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's very important. So I grew up knowing that the word queer was an insult and a slur.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't understand it when I'm seeing folk on Twitter, you know, just using the word queer. Right. And women,
straight people with blue hair. Oh, I'm queer. No. No.
Right. And then we've got queer theory. Right. You know, all those fans, you know, of Foucault.
Half my PhD was queer theory. That was half of my PhD. I used to believe it. I want to eat my whole fist every time I think that I used to believe it, but I did used to believe it.
Well, you'll know the people I'm mentioning. Foucault, right? Gail Rubens.
Yeah.
Right? John Money, who was an evil, evil man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And yet, these bad people's books, right, and the publications and everything else are still getting taught in university.
Yeah. I mean, Foucault,
why not cancel that?
Foucault is widely accepted, paid boys for sex in Algeria, and later died of AIDS.
Yep.
No, I mean, it's not recorded what happened to the boys.
No.
John Money was
the Reiner twins.
He abused those twins in a way that caused both of them to kill themselves.
Both of them to kill themselves by the time they were 38.
He had them do sex acts on each other and take pictures
That's
of
right.
them. He castrated one of them and had him raised as a girl.
If you remembered twins and they were getting circumcised and it got botched in one of them, and then Money came along and said, you know, they could do an operation, make him kind of look a wee bit down there like a girl, and they were going to raise them as still as twins, but it's a girl twin and a boy twin, right? And as they grew up, we used to get them in, as you said, I mean, I'd read about it, and there was a documentary on about it quite a few years ago. And you used to force them into sexual positions and make them pretend they were doing it.
But his whole point was that gender was different from sex. But all his experiments proved was that biological sex is biological sex, and it doesn't matter if you castrate a boy, he's still a boy.
But that's what the twin who'd been turned into a girl, because as he was growing up, right, and found out he was a boy, he started living as a man, kind of thing. And that's the thing that he'd said. He said he'd never felt like a girl ever. Right, even though he was dressed in girls' clothes and everything else like that. Right, and to think that guy Money did that to them and damaged them so badly that both of them ended up committing suicide. Right, and I think the same thing could happen with the ideologies that have been promoted in schools just now.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Turing, they gave Turing drugs to make him not be gay, the same drugs that they are prescribing as puberty blockers
That's
to
right.
boys who might be a bit swooshy. You know?
Right. And those puberty blockers cause iatrogenic disease. Right. They're going to be more prone to, by the time they're 30, right, osteoporosis, heart problems, right, at greater risk of cancer. Anyway, osteopenia, right, just all sorts of things. And also I'd read that quite a lot who had started the hormones quite young, you know, maybe when just preteen, that by the time they're 25, they've ended up with heart attacks.
And there's no, I mean, even if you lay all that aside, as an adult, they make you sterile and incapable of doing anything sexual.
Or having an orgasm or anything.
You can't make that decision as a child because you don't understand what any of that is like.
No.
And I find it so deeply creepy to have doctors and parents taking kids into places to have long conversations about the genitals and measure the size of the genitals regularly and be obsessed with. Like, take them to the park, for goodness sake. Take them on a wilderness retreat. Have them chop wood and carry water. Have them climb trees. You know, not what your body is and who you are, but what your body is for and what you can do.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't agree more with you. I really couldn't.
Here, Ceri. I mean, it's nurture your kids and look after them and teach them well, because things change, kids change. I mean,
Ceri, what age is your wee boy?
Mate, I've got two boys, so one of them's 13 and he's like a proper man's man. He's just great. I love him, and he's got this lovely grounded sort of presence, you know, like little people feel safe around him, and he's big enough now to do man hugs, so he like does proper hugs. And do you know when a fella who you know is lovely gives you a hug and you just feel really like
safe?
Yeah, that. But like, it's a bit weird to say that my 13-year-old makes me feel safe, but he does have that energy about him, you know, like that kind of groundedness. And then my 9-year-old is just, he's got the most beautiful blue eyes in the whole world, but he's this fabulous ball of swooshy, creative, wonderful energy. And he'll give you kisses, but they'll be like flyby kisses. So I'll be over there and I'll run past and he'll be like, mwah! And then again, like, you get hugs, but they're like, hug. He's all energy and fun and hilarity. And he actually asked me when he was like, I mean, everybody thought he was a girl until he was about 5, but he said to me, he said, am I a girl? I'm like, no, you're a boy. Yeah, but I like teddies with sparkly eyes. I must be a girl. I said, no. You're just a boy who likes teddies with sparkly eyes. Like, they're your teddies, you like them, you're a boy, it's fine. He said, oh, okay, cool. And I don't understand how conversations with swooshy boys and tree climbing girls ever get further than that. I don't understand how they get from that conversation to a gender clinic. It seems mad to me.
Exactly. Right, the younger the better. Right, in Scotland, they've actually said that 4-year-olds that are either end of nursery or going into primary school can socially transition, and the parents don't have to be told.
See, that is so bad, because one of the first rules of child protection is that all of the adults involved in protecting that child have to communicate with each other openly and honestly about what's going on and share information.
Not parents.
The whole thing, it drives a wedge through child protection as well, because this whole bit about here's what genitals look like, here's all the vocabulary about anal sex, whatever. Part of the thing that you do when you're speaking to children to find out whether or not their account of abuse is factual is if they know things that they should not know.
They shouldn't know. Precociousness. Right?
No,
that was always a red flag, right? If a child had an awareness about them, right? Knew the words or knew a swear word for it or something like that. That used to be a red flag. Right?
But now they tell them in school.
Well, age, listen, I'll give the pictures, you know, so that Peter can put them up, right? I mean, I couldn't believe it, right? They've got line drawings of front and back, a boy and girl, right? And they're going to teach 3-year-olds, okay, that's head, arm, hand, leg, vulva, vagina, right? Penis, testicles, right? I could imagine a load of 3-year-olds after hearing that. They'd be running about mad, calling each other by the names.
Yeah, I mean,
right? But for me as well, you'll know what I'm talking about, Ceri, that latency period.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you know, that special time with children up to pineal gland, hypothalamus starts working kind of thing, and they hit puberty, right? There's no interest in them at all, like from the neck down to the knees.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They are not interested, and it is such an important part of their development, is having that latency period, and having this explicit sex education for wee ones, right, and primary school children is disturbing that latency period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm actually quite frightened that it's going to be damaging young people as they go into their teens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's been no research on it, right? Because most of the research that's done is getting funded by like LGBT associations or Stonewall, or, you know, like if it's one of the slush funds.
That's the end of it. And you can tell them that quite young, and if they don't understand it, it'll just go over their heads. But by the time you start illustrating it and teaching them it in school and testing them on it, like my theory with sex education is sit down with your kids and tell them really the bare minimum that they need to know for the age that they are. Like,
that's age and stage appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because it should be a gradual awareness. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, in the way that, you know, I had taught you, well, you didn't actually have to say that goes in there, right? You would tell them what happens, and then you'd see it, you know, it dawning on their face. Mm-hmm. Oh, so that's how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and that's fine too.
The one of the things that and just going back to touching on the fact that they're telling kids to kind of keep secrets for their parents. I mean, that's the first parental. That's the first parental. I mean, when I heard about that, I was like, nah, surely it can't be that bad, right? Because for me, I've got 3 kids, and 2 of them are grown, like well grown. But the first thing for me was to listen. It doesn't matter what happens outside this house, right? You come in and you tell me the truth, because I'll deal with you for lying a lot more easier than I'll deal with somebody else that's trying to hurt you. So if you've caused it and you've lied about it, then come and tell me, and I'll fix it with you, and I'll also fix it with whoever the person is, right? It puts them in the best position. See this? Don't tell your parents. I want to actually go and withdraw. I've only got 1 school-age kid at the minute. I want to actually go and withdraw my child from school. Telling kids to keep secrets for their parents is a disaster, an absolute disaster waiting to happen.
And sometimes it's okay. So, for example, they used to say if a child at your school comes out to you as gay or whatever, or says I'm a lesbian or anything like that, okay, you can keep that from parents. You don't have to tell that to parents. But by the time you get from a child saying I am actually a boy to then taking action so that everybody in the school refers to that child by different pronouns, and you know, it's a difference, and people try to pretend it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing at all.
It's absolutely wild. Right, we're running on, and I wanted to kind of just appreciate a wee bit more and play a video or a clip of a video of you, if that's okay, if you give me your permission. It's one of yours, just your protest one, so I won't play it all because I know it's quite long, but just maybe the first minute or so, just to give people, the viewers, a reference point to get to if they haven't seen it, so that they can listen to it, because I was cheering and everything when I watched them. Right, but that's me, right? I can't hide when somebody's standing up for themselves and they're doing it in the right way, I'm on their side. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter. No, hold on. What's happened to them? Oh, I'm on their side. Definitely. No, they're getting picked on and they're standing up for themselves. And you're right to pick on them some more. Aye. And the horse hero done on pal. Cheerio. So that I want to give a wee bit of appreciation for the fact that you'll probably see me smiling as I'm playing it, because there's a bit that I want to actually get to that's, for me, it's a bit, not the name.
My therapist makes me, every time I do a speech, he makes me watch it back, because he says that I need to, that person standing in that clip, I need to integrate that into my sense of who I am. So I'm going to do my best to enjoy it.
Children too today, as I do every day. I swore a solemn oath to them before they were born that little people will be safe around me, that I will be the last person my difficult childhood hurts, and that regardless of the cost, I will speak the truth, take names, and set boundaries when it comes to safeguarding children.
Right, we'll stop it there because that's exactly the bit I wanted to share. It was the words that you used there about protecting children, and I was cheering, and I'm like, I know your story. I've read it. I've read up a wee bit. I don't know everything about you, Ceri, and like, I will try and pick up wee bits as the time goes on. But for me, knowing that story, listening to that speech, knowing how what's happened to somebody that's closer to me than what you are. And when I say closer, I mean distance-wise. I don't mean like in relationships. I just mean distance. That happened in Scotland, and it really appalled me that this is allowed to happen. So to see you, the stance that you're making, and the fact that like you're not letting anybody like brush you aside, that's the suffragette bit in you. Well done. Like, I'm in awe of women like you. I'm in awe of women that in general, because as I've said, like, the first person that ever helped me to do anything was my mum, and then my sisters, and they were the first ones that stood in front of me or egged me on whenever there was anything needed doing. So my respect for women, and I might not have showed it through my teens and early 20s. I might have been a wee bit an arsehole, to be honest. But as I got older and seeing the right for wrong, I'm on your side all day long. I'll shout for these and scream for these, and if need be, because I don't like to kind of offer my services like to women to stand in front of you. But if called upon, I'll be there.
Right, I have to stop it now because I'm gonna. No, but thank you. Thank you.
I think it needs to be said. I think more men need to actually be coming out and being a wee bit more honest about. I've not been the perfect gentleman all my life, but I'm at a chance in my life now where the mistakes that I've made, I'm at peace with those mistakes, and I'm trying to prevent any further mistakes. Be paying attention to some of the ones that have happened in the past.
Testosterone's a hell of a drug, though, isn't it? I mean, testosterone is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, it's yes, I'm not one to kind of go into like, speaking for other people, but yeah, I mean, I had times when I'm not proud of some of the things that my young life gave me, or threw up by the approach that I took. However, I've got a chance now to make sure that I don't make those same mistakes again, and by not doing that, it's like standing up and being counted and calling what's right and what's wrong, and backing the people that deserve the backing. And like you said, this could be me. I could be in your position. I could be in Marion Miller's position. Eileen could be. Anybody could be. Because if that's the way that they're going to target it, then there are more people like us that are going to be impacted. So the sooner we actually band together and stand up as one. I know it's hard to stand up as one.
It's time to expose all this.
Yes, absolutely.
It is time to expose it. We've had far too much of it. There's been too many deals done in back rooms, corners, right? 200 meetings, not a minute for them. Civil servants' names redacted. The visitors redacted. The SPADs redacted, right? And they're doing that deliberately, so they cannot be held accountable.
Yep.
And it's this thrives in the dark thing.
Yeah.
So, and I've lived most of my life with shame and secrecy and silence, and with weakness, and with not being the person that I needed when I was a little girl. And I work every single day to be the adult that I needed when I was a little girl. Do you know, and the fact that it's not just my children who are safe in their beds tonight because I look after them. There are other children in the world who are. That does a hell of a lot for me as a human being, you know. Like, to know that.
And so it should.
You know, Ceri, we're going to need women like you and more women like you. And I'm going to tell you why. In Scotland especially, if we cannot roll this back just now, right, what they've put into the schools regards ideologies, regards transgender, how people have to be treated, regards other stuff. So I feel so passionate about this.
So we are going to.
If we don't stop them, if we don't roll this back, we are going to have an awful lot of damaged children, and fractured families.
But this is why we're going to win, because what does queer theory have? Queer theory has a great big juggernaut that it drives through families. It has families splitting up, it has social isolation, it has child abuse, it has the mutilation of children, it has the separation of children from their families. And what do we have? We have family reunification, we have child protection, we have the best hugs, love, boundaries, we have the best parties. Like, there is no party in the world like the parties that we throw. We can't, how can we lose when we have all the things that are attractive to people? And what does their side have apart from pornography?
The one thing that worries me about that, and I want to be as positive as Ceri is, that we are going to win. The one thing that worries me when GRA is implemented in Scotland, we've already seen a male being installed in a rape crisis centre as the head of a rape crisis centre in Scotland.
Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, Madrill.
Yeah, Madrill Wadwa. So if you then have instances like that happening to these institutions that you rightfully hold so dear for women's rights, children's rights, and so on, if you then have the people with the ideology that they're trying to push infiltrating these institutions like the Rape Crisis Centre, it then becomes harder for people like us to actually regain cover. I mean, I don't know if you heard about the dance group that was started by somebody over the past week that was in the news, and it was taken over by trans activists, and the lady eventually had to basically give up her business.
Oh yeah.
And then the trans people are saying that, well, they've not, basically they weren't prepared to run a business and didn't know how to go about it, and they ran it into the ground. But I mean, that's an example of somebody who's passionate about something, starting something up, wanting to include people, and then the people that she includes then exclude her from the thing that she said. Oh, I mean, for me, it's very worrying that if that's the potential, if this has got the potential to happen, we need to be on our toes and we need to be dealing with it as we are just now. And as Eileen said, they need to be exposed. There will be somebody that will share absolutely every piece of information that they have, and hope for the best. I don't know who that person will be yet, but there will be somebody.
There's going to be collateral damage on the way, unfortunately. And the collateral damage in Scotland currently are the women in violent relationships, are the women who've been raped, who are looking online about the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre to try and get some help. And they've got their finger hovering over the button that says escape this page in case somebody comes in. And alongside what they search for comes up the fact that the CEO of this organisation is a man. And they press the X button and never go back and sit and cope with their trauma on their own forever.
Yeah, I mean,
there was an announcement, actually, I think I saw it on Twitter, that I think it was the Edinburgh Rape Council in place and Scottish Women's Aid. They're all linked together now.
Yeah.
Right? So nobody's going to be guaranteed to see a woman who's been raped, right, brutalized by a man, right, and she's not going to be able to see another woman for therapy.
And there's something that happens in a room when you're sitting in a room in a rape crisis centre and there are other women there, and every woman in that room doesn't just know what you're talking about intellectually, but every woman has been through what you've been through. And you reach inside yourself and you start to try to articulate some of the things that you've experienced. And you just get a little tiny bit out. And every person in that room understands on a visceral level, not just what you went through, but everything that led up to it and what it is to be a woman in the world after that's happened to you. And the solidarity, I'm getting quite emotional now, but the solidarity that happens in that room could not happen if a man was there. And it just couldn't. And the fact that I was in that room and had those conversations and was then able to leave that room and go back into the world and be friends with men and talk to men and raise boys and not come out of it bitter and angry and hating men, is because I had that sacred space, that healing sacred space that was women only. And the fact that men are now wrecking it because they say they're women.
No, we understand, told women they had to reframe their trauma, you know, their trans bigotry, their transphobia.
Bigots get raped too, I believe was the phrase.
Yes, that's it. right? And the same man, I mean, I've never heard of this in therapy in my entire life. Right? I mean, I don't go to therapy, but when you hear about others, he actually was so crass as to say that some women get an orgasm when they've been raped. I couldn't actually believe it.
And do you want to know the worst thing about that is,
That's now, see, for me, that was abuse. As soon as that was said, that
abusive.
person should have been sacked instantly. That should have been an instant dismissal.
Out their own abuse. So once you've been abused and you lose all your boundaries, I used to do it. I used to go into pubs when I was a teenager and actually seek out adult men to abuse me. And I could pick out the fella in the room who would go home with a young girl. From 100 yards, I could pick it out. And I blamed myself over it. But for a male CEO of a rape crisis centre to choose that to talk publicly about, that may be something that you talk about in a private therapy session in the context of, this is a huge part of my guilt and my sense of responsibility over this, and how do you shift that? But to come out in public and say it, it's abhorrent.
It was in an article as well. We all read it.
So it wasn't just a thing that was said, it was like written down, proofread.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He seems to be one of the seems to be one of the St. Nicola. Did you see that picture? Right, with the light all coming down and all that.
Oh,
Yeah.
The cult worship. Sorry, ladies.
The Church of the Holy High Heels. Right. Well, it appears that Majo's a great pal of St. Nicola.
If you go back historically, there's links there, yeah. So
did we not have a picture of that?
I've got that. I'll flash it through. Don't you worry. Yes, I'll be putting all of the connections. That
there's a couple of interesting people in that picture.
So if you say hiya, they should really like that. Actually.
What's her name?
Tracy.
Tracy. Hi, and thank you for what you wrote to me.
Thank you. Right, ladies, I don't want to keep you here. I know you've got family that you want to be getting back to, and I want you to be getting back to them as well. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and even after having to reschedule with other things, thank you so much for speaking.
Thank you for asking me.
Well, it's a pleasure. I'm going to ask you something else now as well. We are running a parents forum, and I think if with your knowledge and experience, you would be
absolutely love to have Ceri's expertise and her experience and her wisdom in this. We've all got different skills, kind of thing, but you know,
just to have you to come along and speak at one of your events would be absolutely. When I say come along, it's like this. It's online, but there's no traveling involved. It'll be an online event, so I'll leave it with you because I don't want to put you under pressure. But if you could consider it, it's something that we're
no, it's not a pressure thing. In terms of time commitments, I'd be completely happy to come along and talk to you. In terms of sort of ongoing commitments, we can discuss anything. I'm not sure whether it's Scotland only or anything like that, but child protection work, I'll always have a look at and see whether.
Well, that's what
it is.
That's why I'm asking you, because it's child protection and because the stance that you've made and continue to make. I'll let you protect my wins any day.
No, you go. No, I'm away. Onion ninjas all over the place in this podcast.
No, it's horrible what's happening to you. You've got support all over the world.
But actually, what happened to me happened, and as a result of what happened to me, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And if I could make it not have happened, I would. But it did happen, and so that then leaves me with a choice of who I'm going to be. And what I'm going to do about it, and how I'm going to go forward. And what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to, every day, I'm going to be that person that I needed when I was a little girl.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing that, and I'll look out for that every single day, whether it be in a message or whether it be a video clip or whatever. But we'll behind the scenes, we'll talk about trying to get you to come and guest at one of our parents forums, because the parents in Scotland would I know would take an awful lot for the experiences that you would share and the knowledge that you have. I'd be delighted to have you on. Delighted.
And thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the work you do as well.
No, it's at the end of the day, I wish I didn't have to be doing this. I'm doing this, it's through, if I don't, then nobody's doing it, and then I'm going to feel terrible for not doing it. So that's the only reason I'm doing it. As soon as everything's hunky-dory again, this will be getting kiboshed and I'll be getting back to my family.
And I'll be getting back to arguing with my gay friends as to whether Top Gun is actually like a lesbian movie and Tom Cruise is like basically a butch lesbian, or whether it's a gay movie and the actual love story is Tom Cruise and Goose.
I'm going to look at it differently now that you've said that. Ceri, I'm going to look at it differently. No, all it remains is for me say, Ceri, thank you so much for joining us this evening in Tweet Street. Eileen, over to you. Just pass on your thanks and say good night.
Thank you, Ceri. Really, really nice to meet you. And what we'll do is we'll exchange numbers.
Yes.
Because I might have to call on your expertise a wee bit. There's something coming up, something very interesting.
Brilliant.
And yes, I'd like your opinion on it.
Well, there you go. Ceri, over to you for the final word before I say goodnight.
Just thank you very much. And it's been really great talking to you. And I'm sorry for making you cry.
Ah, listen, I've done it on camera and everything, but I don't care. See what the cause that you're doing it for. I'd shed blood for it, never mind tears. So
I'm looking forward to it. We'll work together. We'll do some things together.
So
excellent.
From Tweet Street, from Fem Loves Ceri Black, for Eileen Spence, and for Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. Good night. Thanks very much. Stay safe and have a lovely Christmas and New Year, everyone.
First it was the Tories, now it's the SNP. Struggling and fighting, no to set my Scotland free, so I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. So I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. Paying taxpayers' money out to their mates and all. We're no better up here, she's pissing it straight up Stonewall, so I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. One's no feeding the bairns, one's castrating them and all. While asking them the last time, penetration breached vaginal anal walls, so I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. So I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. They've shut down all their services, now trying to kill the NHS. It's so effing serious, cause it's taking its last breath, so I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. So I say fuck it. Merry Christmas. My dreams of being on holiday, it's just nae possible nae mere. My ideas of fuck it for Christmas have dropped right through the flare, so he says Santa, geese independence. We say Santa and the Union. Oh Santa, set our Scotland free. Tweet Street, Scotland, satirical saltire.